So, I don't think I've ever played a multiplayer dating sim before, but here we are. Monster Prom is exactly that, where you're put into the role of a high school student in a supernatural world who must choose between 6 different characters to take to prom. If you have the DLC, this number is bumped up to 8, but the DLC won't change much, so I'm not going to review it on its own, but I will mention what it contains. To start off the review, I like to do things differently because there's an area most reviewers don't cover. Say you're an older sibling or even a parent and you would like to play this game with or around your younger family. The answer for this game is definitely no, if you don't want them around any sexual themes, because even though Monster Prom looks cartoony and cute, there's a ton of sexual stuff going on, from talking about blowjobs to sex positions. And while there's no graphic stuff happening in the game because it's all about reading, you might want to avoid your younger family asking you what a blowjob is. With that out the way, let's talk about gameplay. Monster Prom begins with choosing one of 4 avatars, and from there, a pop quiz. There are no wrong answers to the pop quiz, but each answer will give you a boost in different stats, along with the final questions giving you some affection points with a character depending on your answer. Stats play a pretty important role in the game, so after you're done with the pop quiz, you'll be allowed to go to different areas of the school, each giving you a boost in stats when done. From there, you'll be given a scenario and 2 choices. Neither of the choices are wrong because they are skill checks. If you fail a skill check, you'll suffer a loss of stats. However, if you pass the skill check, you'll be given a boost in those stats. So why do we need to increase our stats? That's because each of the dateable characters like different stats, and if you don't have high enough in those areas, you will get rejected. Luckily for me, that doesn't affect me much because rejection is part of my everyday life. Also, you need to score affection with the characters if you want to date them. This can be done through the scenarios I mentioned or through the cafeteria section. The cafeteria is pretty simple. Different characters will be sitting with each other each time you enter the cafeteria. From there, you can choose who you want to sit with and solve a scenario. This scenario won't give you an increase in stats, but will guarantee an increase in affection. Finally, you do this process until it is prom night and you shoot your shot, where everything you've done from your stat management to how you performed on the scenarios will decide if you'll get some sweet monster booty that night. Although I did mention this was a multiplayer dating sim, and surprisingly this makes for a pretty fun couch co-op game. And yes, you heard that right. You can play this game on your computer with up to 4 people simply by passing the mouse around. It's also possible to play online in lobbies. The gameplay while playing multiplayer functions the same, except the turn order is determined by a question game where you're given a question and must argue who has the best answer. You also could always just press random if your friends are being stubborn little shits. However, in multiplayer, when someone chooses an area to increase their stats, that area is now locked off from everyone until the next turn, making the turn order very important, along with being able to sabotage other players if they're trying to get the same data as you by blocking off their stats. Speaking of sabotage, halfway through a multiplayer game, a love interest will go up to a random player and ask them a question about whoever has the highest affection with them. That player can choose to either be a bro and help out the other player by putting in a good word, or by sabotaging them by telling them a rumor and lowering the affection score. When everyone is going after a different love interest, it's a pretty casual game, but if people are competing for a single character, that game becomes much more competitive and feels like an actual party game with salt and broken friendships. Unless you have no friends at all, then I basically just wasted your time talking about this section. Anyways, in short, the gameplay is very simple and easy to pick up, which is a good thing when you're playing with friends who don't normally play video games, and I think that's an important trait to have in a party game. Although, because of that, I really can't see this game being played for more than a few hours because the gameplay will always stay the same and there isn't any depth to it unless you play multiplayer, and even then you might eventually get bored and move on to something else with your friends. Although I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Monster Prom knows what it is in being that there isn't much you can do when it comes to the dating sim formula, and especially when you add multiplayer to that formula. But what they did do with the game, I think they nailed. The gameplay doesn't feel cluttered with needless features, and everything in there feels like it has a purpose within the formula to make it work. There's also pretty high replay value in this game to make sure you'll eventually come back, with there being over 400 scenarios in the base game, with the DLC bumping up that number to more than 560. Which at the end of each game, they give you a little tracker that will tell you how many new scenarios you discovered until you've done them all, along with how many secret endings you have yet to complete. And yes, there are secret endings that don't involve asking your date to prom, which are found by completing different prerequisites. Most of the secret endings have their own storylines that you will follow instead of just getting random scenarios. So if you're looking for a game that has good replay value, I believe Monster Prom has that covered. Now, who exactly are you trying to date? Well, there's Scott Howell, who is a straight up dumbass, but still lovable in his own way. He's also voiced by Aaron Hansen of Game Grumps, but honestly this isn't too important because most of the voice lines are less than 3 words or they're just doing a laugh. Next is Liam de Lioncourt, who is a hipster vampire that's into shit you won't understand because you're not cool enough. There's Damien LeVay, who is a hot-tempered devil who will basically throw hands with anything for no real reason. And for DLC, we have Calculester, who is a good boy robot and should be protected at all costs. For the girls, we have Miranda Vanderbilt, who is basically Mermaid Hitler and is willing to kill anyone beneath her in social status. She's still super cute though. Next up is Pollygeist, who's a straight up party animal, and since nothing can kill a ghost, she downs a bunch of beer and drugs. Not gonna lie, I love Polly, but her whole character is drugs, 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 sex, 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 and after a while it gets kinda old. Then we have Vera Oberlin, who is a Gorgon that runs her own criminal empire, who doesn't take shit from anyone beneath her, and I want her to fucking step on me. Finally, for DLC, we have Zoe, who is an eldritch tentacle monster that loves fanfiction and even writes her own. She is literally worth buying the DLC for. I fucking adore this character and everything about her. The cast of dateable characters along with the side characters are all honestly fun and unique in their own ways. There's so much going on between the characters that seeing how each one of them interacts with each other is honestly a highlight of the game. How does Vera, the Gorgon mob boss, interact with Miranda, the princess with a kingdom? How does Scott, the completely oblivious werewolf, get along with Polly, the embodiment of sex jokes? The scenarios answer these questions by putting them into a wide variety of situations, for the most part are entertaining. The humor of this game can be hit or miss, but for the most part I think it has more hits. It helps that the cast is honestly interesting and some of the lines they say can range from hilarious to morbid at any given moment. Although, the problem with this is that people have a different sense of humor than I do and vice versa, so this can be a toss-up for most people, and if you don't find this game funny, then that could honestly be a serious deal breaker, because so much of the game relies on its charm to motivate you to follow the characters and their stories. To close up, I think Monster Prom accomplished what they wanted to do with the game. It's fun, eccentric, and morbid all at the same time. When priced at $12, I really think it's not a bad deal considering how much content the game has to offer, especially when it's on discount going as low as $6. If you have a group of friends, Monster Prom makes for a really solid party game, and while I think it's at its best with friends, it's still an enjoyable experience alone as well. If you want to try something unique that doesn't require a huge time investment, I believe Monster Prom is worth your consideration. I'm Chris from Genuine Chill. If you liked the video, you should like the video, because we're a small ass channel and it's nice to get some support. And while you're at it, leave a comment and let me know what you think about Monster Prom and who's the best date. That's it for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.